Hi everyone, Tarot Adventures with Jules here. Today I'm going to be speaking with Thomas from Hermit's Mirror, and I cannot wait. Thomas is the amazing creator of the Lifeline series of decks. He's created the Lifeline Tarot, the Lifeline Oracle, and there is a brand new deck that is now launched on Kickstarter that I can't wait to chat with Thomas. Let me just figure out the invite. Okay, there we go. um, yeah, hi Thomas, so nice to see you.
Hi, Jules. Good to see you too.
Let me just angle this a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Thanks so much for joining me. This is wonderful. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah,
Excited to get to chat with you too.
yeah. I've seen you on video before taking one of your classes, but this is the first time that we've had a chance to chat one-on-one. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, this is so great. Yes, I'm so excited to talk to you about your decks and your classes and your readings and all of it. It's fantastic. You have such a breadth of knowledge of the tarot, and it's so exciting. I still feel like I need to pinch myself that I actually have a chance to chat with talented creators like you. Like this is such a privilege. So yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I really appreciate, having the chance to chat with you and then to be part of that sort of august group. But I think what we learn in this sort of space with the social media space is that we all have such broad perspectives and trainings, and we learn so much from each other. Like the way that my own practice has evolved since joining
Yeah.
Instagram a little over 3 years ago. I mean, it's just like far exceeded what I had done in the years and years and years before that. So,
Yeah.
and it's just from learning from people like you and
Oh,
seeing,
it's
you know,
like this space.
what we all do.
Yeah, it's been such a gift being able to learn from other tarot practitioners in this Instagram space. I mean, there's so much knowledge that everyone has and unique perspectives on the tarot. And yeah, I started my account 2 years ago, last November, and it's been the same for me. I mean, my learning curve has been huge, just being able to look at what other people are coming up with and, their perspectives on things and insights on different aspects of tarot. I mean, it's huge. You're absolutely right. Hi, Tropical Tarot. Yeah,
Hey,
so I guess I thought we could start by chatting a bit about your decks and
yeah.
the process that went into creating them. Did you create the Lifeline Tarot and Oracle around the same time, or did one come first? How did that happen?
Tarot came first.
Okay.
So, yeah, I just been playing around with coming up with so it came out of wanting to do a class on the court
Mhm.
cards and wanting my own royalty-free imagery
Yeah,
to use.
yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, why don't I just like sketch out the court cards for myself? And then around the same time, I think Jess Rollard was like hugely inspirational. She is always learning new things. Highly recommend. Um, she was doing like a single line, and like,
Mhm.
you're supposed to take no more than like 1 minute to draw the line, and then like you had, I think, three colors and like five dollops, and like that's all you got to use to
Wow.
just like quickly sketch something, and then color it. So it's like, oh, I'll just try that with the core cards. And so I did that, and they slowly got more and more intricate, and like I was adding all of these watercolors and all of this
Oh,
stuff, and it was totally defeated the purpose. Yeah. Um, and so, and if you go back far enough in my feed, you'll see like a screenshot game where you have that like original line work with these sort of watercolors,
mhm.
fully fleshed out, very different from what I ended up doing.
Yeah,
And so it was through that process of just like, oh, here's a fun little task. Here's a very sort of stupid need that I have that
yeah,
it wasn't even really a need. And then that's where it started. And then people were saying like, oh, are you going to do a deck? And I thought, well, it's really derivative. Like it's just single line art of like Pamela Coleman Smith's illustrations. Like it's
yeah.
not really that interesting. And then I realized after the fact, like I kept doing it because I actually really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
Um, and um, I done the court cards and I did the majors, and I
Mhm.
didn't know what to do next. But
Mhm.
as I mean, obviously you do the minors, but I didn't know how I wanted to do them,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're slightly different.
Yeah.
Um, but as I was going, I realized like, oh, there isn't a single line version of
Hmm.
these decks, like let alone
Yeah.
Pamela Coleman Smith's illustrations and what I was trying to do with them, but like just a single line tarot at all, which I didn't realize until Holly Enchanted, who did the tarot art book, was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, there isn't one of like I have not seen one of those, and so I figured like, oh okay, this is a fun new thing. Um, so I really like leaned into what I thought was valuable with that, with the minors, which are more open, more
Mhm.
abstract. They have a lot more blank spaces, and so that's how that evolved. If you compare it to some of the court cards or the major arcana, you know, those are much busier, much
Mhm.
more complete, and so it was really with the minors where I got to like do something new and different and special.
Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, their tarot book is incredible. I've
Yeah.
been thoroughly enjoying doing a deep dive into the history of tarot through all of that, and they reference the most amazing decks, and it's a really special creation. Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
incredible book. Yeah, I just kind of I have all of my tarot cards in order because I wanted to be able to reference
Oh.
things quickly, and I just opened it randomly to the Six of Wands, and I love what I love so much about this deck is the simplicity of it. Like I don't actually own a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Like I reference it a lot in books, but I just haven't. I've done a lot of decks that are Rider-Waite-Smith inspired, but I haven't felt as pulled to the original deck, so to speak.
Mhm.
But I feel like this deck is so magical because it draws in all of that imagery, but there's a simplicity to it. I don't know if it's the colors that set me off with the original. Like it's very like
Mm.
primary colors, which isn't a bad thing, but it's just for whatever reason, I feel really drawn in by these images. Like they just really encapsulate with this beautiful contrast the meanings of these cards so beautifully. I really love it, and the size is really
Thank
nice
you.
too because they're just like I think I was looking at your website earlier and you were saying it's a grab and go deck so you can take it wherever you want, just toss it in your bag, and it's so great because it is a smaller format, which is really
Hmm.
lovely. Yeah, I just love this star card and the line art. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fabulous. And I love that it kind of came out of oh wow, there isn't anything like this out there, and you're already enjoying the whole drawing process. And I feel like the best things kind of evolve organically like that, like
Hmm.
I feel like anytime I set out to do a thing, I end up like psyching myself out or overthinking it. Whereas if I just allow myself to play, something really magical happens. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and that was the nice thing about the deck is that I had told people
Mhm.
like, well, I don't know that I really want to do it. This is just art for me to be able to reference elsewhere without feeling like I need to, be slapping on a bunch of copyright notices.
Yeah.
Um, and so, which, I do throughout my site and like in my classes, I've requested permission from the deck creators
Yeah.
to use their art. Um, but I hadn't wanted to go through that at the time.
Hmm.
And I think in the like allowing myself to say like no one needs like I don't need to make this for anyone
Yeah.
made it more special, and ultimately obviously I did end up creating a deck that is purchasable,
Yeah.
and so I think a lot of people have enjoyed that. But yeah, the like I don't know, the sort of like open spirit and like quick energy of it I think is what excites people when they actually get to use it because that carries through.
Yeah.
And then that just came from like a place of not being overly concerned because I
Mhm.
knew if I tried to like make, as you know, the line work is very messy. And if I tried to make it like
Great.
too perfect,
Yeah.
then A, it would like lose some of that vitality, and
Hmm.
B, I would never finish because I'm a
Yeah.
perfectionist. So if I like
Yeah.
open that door,
Yeah.
then yeah, like there's just yeah, nothing comes out of it.
Yeah.
So I just said like, okay, we're not worrying about it. I'm just gonna,
Yeah.
do this quickly. If it stinks, I'll just do it over from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's the thing with these lines is it's, uh, it's easy to undo.
Yeah. Absolutely.
um, so yeah, a lot of it just came sort of out of necessity to be quick and loose and to say like, you know what, these are happy little accidents. Like,
Hmm.
um, I can't think of his name, Bob Ross. There
Bob
we go.
Ross. I was just going to say that Bob Ross moment, 100%.
Yeah.
Love his approach because it's so loose and it's so fluent and it's so, oh, this little splotch here, well, we're going to turn that into a little happy tree. Like we literally had his videos on like throughout the day over the weekend once, just as like this like happy, nurturing, nourishing, creative background. for our day. Like we're doing puzzles and different things, and it was just so lovely to see his free-form, happy, relaxed approach to art. I'm a fellow
Mm.
perfectionist, performing perfectionist, and type A.
Right,
I
right.
find it's so easy to overthink these things and think,
Hmm.
but the flow that you appear to have gotten into with the creation of this is so magical because there's such a power in allowing something to happen and be what it is and not have to be perfect, right? Like that. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it so
I
much.
will say that changed a little bit with the Oracle.
Yeah.
And so with when I did the tarot, I did it all through, Procreate with the Apple Pencil and iPad. And it was my first time using all of those together.
Yeah.
So I didn't fully understand like resolution settings that I was doing. So I like, maintaining that as I did each of the suits and as I did
Mhm.
the court cards and the major arcana. So like the major arcana are very thick
Yeah.
compared to some of the other lines. And that's just because like I chose a bad setting to do those. But at the same time, I don't know, they're more powerful. So they
Yeah.
should be thicker lines, right?
Exactly.
And so the Lenorical was much more like pre-planned.
Hmm.
Like I made sure all of the settings were the exact same across
Hmm.
all of the card art. Like I
Yeah.
realized that that was a thing.
I love that.
Um, and so it's much more controlled, which feels right because
Mhm.
the art inspiration is Victorian.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a much more like controlled. The Lenormand is typically a more controlled system,
Yeah.
um, although there's plenty of room for interpretation
Yeah.
and intuition.
Yeah.
And the oracle component of it, like you can make meaning out of whatever you want with those cards, or there is a very like sort of prescribed set of interpretations.
Mm-hmm.
So it fits in that way, but they are a little bit different in that sense. Like it's both
Yeah.
still that same kind of line art, but the Lenormand does not have the same looseness as the
Yeah.
tarot.
Well, I feel like the Lenormand system, like I'm just kind of learning that right now. I'm doing a deep dive this month and using this deck,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been so lovely. And the Jack of Hearts keeps coming up for me, which is interesting. But it's a different system. Like it has a different feel to it. There's more of a,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like probably because I'm new to it, like more of a rigid structure in terms of the meanings and how the cards correspond, and it's more of a direct answer in some respects.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, tarot can be used in that way, but I feel like for Lenormand, it's a different approach. It's a more direct approach in some respects. And so I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the way that you've adjusted the artwork for this is really lovely because it supports each of the approaches, right? Tarot is
Yep.
one approach to the cards, and Lenormand and Oracle is another. And I feel like you've really captured that beautifully. And there's a couple cards here that I really love too. I think this is the ring, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yep.
the sun. And yeah, it's just so lovely because all of the other cards have, I love this cat for the Two of Spades. It's beautiful. We have a really sweet black cat named Cassiopeia that, yeah, she's lovely. But yeah, like these complement the other cards and yet they stand on their own as well. And I just love that. Like it's a really beautiful approach. Um, and I also wanted to mention how much I appreciate like the man and woman cards in Lenormand throw me a little bit because I'm really exploring moving past gender binary in my own practice right now and
Mm-hmm.
trying to find a bit more fluidity with that. And so I love that you've included a range of different personas or people in your depictions of these cards. Like that feels very fluid to me and really inclusive and lovely. Like it's really, yeah. I just wanted to mention that I really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And you can, because they are different images, like you can use two Ace of Hearts, two Ace of Spades. You can
Yeah.
have multiple if you're sort of in a poly situation, or if you're asking about a non-romantic
Mm-hmm.
situation with multiple partners involved, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not just a two-person world that we live in. So that was
Absolutely.
important to be able to offer.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate that. And coming back to the tarot, I wanted to ask you more about the new Color Outside the Lines edition that you have on Kickstarter. That's so exciting.
Yes.
So what inspired you to come out with a new edition? I think I noticed that the card format is slightly bigger as well, and you've incorporated
Yep.
color. So yeah, tell me
Mm-hmm.
more about this.
So people had been asking, like, oh, can
Mhm.
you make a bigger version? Because as you noted, the current, sorry, my dog is underneath me. So if you hear him groan, that's him. Um,
I'm
Maybe he's
surprised
very
mine isn't at the
vocal.
door right now, actually. He likes to hang
Yeah.
out behind when the door's shut.
they
Yeah.
love these spaces, right? Like,
Yeah.
and especially if the door is closed, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you can come in, you're not coming out. Um, the Yeah, so people, or the original decks are bridge size.
Hmm.
So it's smaller, it's even smaller than a standard poker deck,
Hmm.
or poker cards. And that's great for the
Hmm.
purpose of it, which is to
Yeah.
do tableau readings,
Hmm.
to like have that sort of tarot on the go, to,
Hmm.
you know, be unafraid to treat the boxes very roughly, like my own tarot, like it's
Yeah.
just falling apart because it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like a cheap little tuck box. It's meant to be like playing cards, which is also why, they have the pips have the sort of playing card
Yeah.
symbology. But some people were like, okay, I love this art, but I would love to see it in like a standard size because I
Hmm.
have large hands, so it's sort of hard to hold the little ones, or I want it to feel more like a tarot deck.
Hmm.
And I didn't know how much I cared about that, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
there are different, you have different decks for different
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah.
But I actually wanted to do like a ritual deck that was going to have like that matte finish and like silver. So I mean, it still will happen. But it would be like black and sort of purple base
Oh,
with like
yeah.
cloudy with
Yeah.
silver line art.
Oh my goodness.
So
That's
like
gorgeous.
silver foil.
Yeah.
That will be the Smoke and Mirrors edition.
Ooh.
But I decided not to do that now because of
Yeah.
supply chain.
Oh,
And I was
supply
like,
chain is
that
a
has to
nightmare
be
right now.
printed
Yeah.
in China,
Yeah.
and I don't want to like introduce like the possible like timing conflict,
Yeah.
and I would need to kickstart it,
Yeah.
just financially speaking.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I didn't want to introduce that and have like be unable to promise a like quick
Yeah.
delivery of things, because I know that has been a struggle for some of the things that
Yes.
I kickstarted
Yeah.
and other folks have kickstarted, where it's like, oh, this is 2 years late. That's
Yeah.
not a great experience. It'll come when it comes, but
Yeah.
yeah, that bothers me
Yeah.
from the delivery side,
Yeah.
right? Like that goes with the perfectionist. I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't guarantee this date. So I was like, all right, I'll put that on hold until things ease up. In the meantime, let's just play with color
Yeah.
and see if that's interesting. So um, I started to like hand color. Let me see if I have um, some of the originals. Just I had Copic markers, right? And so I would color in like some
Oh
of
my
the
goodness. Oh,
originals just with
fabulous.
marker. This is one of my favorites, right? The
Oh,
world
wow.
um,
Incredible.
in color. And so I would do that just for fun.
Yeah.
Um, and I posted a couple, and people were like, "Oh my God, is there going to be a color version?"
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't know what color really does for the deck,
Hmm.
so I don't know. Like I'm not
Yeah.
sure. So then I started playing around with a bunch of different options,
Hmm.
and I liked how they looked, but
Hmm.
I wanted it to be magical. So the
Hmm.
inspiration for, or the value for the original, beyond just being like, oh, it's a single line tarot, how like
Yeah.
different, is that you can scry with it. And I'm a scryer. Like I look into the surface and the abstractions to see like what's there that isn't really there.
Hmm.
And so um, the like abstractness and looseness allowed the tarot deck to be a tarot deck and like a crystal ball,
Yeah.
essentially, right? So it can be these two different techniques of divination in one, which, my Lifeline Oracle, it's three divination systems in one. So like I find that an important value proposition.
Hmm.
So I wanted the color version to offer something different, or like to not just be like, oh, it's a prettier version of the same deck, but it doesn't
Hmm.
do anything different. And so I worked with a bunch of different options, and then I landed on these sort of like subtle, for the most part, lines, of just color that like just add a little bit.
Oh,
It's
I
not a
love
ton. Um, it's not like fully colored in because,
it.
of course, these aren't complete shapes. They're just lines anyway.
Yeah.
Um, and I decided I would use the Golden Dawn
Hmm.
scale of esoteric color combinations
Hmm.
for the major arcana, and then I would weave those through the minor arcana.
Oh, I
So
love
for me, it's like, okay, there's this esoteric level
it. Yeah.
with the cards. And then as I was working with different options, I discovered I really liked the sort of like imperfect, slightly messy look of what's essentially Crayola markers.
Yes.
So like not fancy acrylics, not fancy
Yeah.
Copics, like nothing too intense like a
Hmm.
Sharpie. So you have these uh, faint, I mean, I shouldn't say faint. Some of them are quite vibrant, but uh, these just imperfect, cheap marker lines
Yeah.
that fit with the original, but
Mhm.
then they bring out this sort of like joyous, childish energy. And
Yeah.
so I realized, like, oh, this is an inner child healing deck as well as being a tarot deck, as well as sort of like awakening these esoteric um, combinations of colors that can just add to your sort of like magical use, or unconscious knowledge that you didn't even realize that you had about that. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, now I feel good about that. I'll see if anyone else likes it. And so I kickstarted it because I was like, I'm not going to make these and just try to push them. So yeah, and it's funded, so that's exciting.
It was funded so quickly. That was incredible. I was so excited to see it. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's always a
yeah.
nice sign when you see that you've got that support so immediately. I mean, some Kickstarters take longer to fund, and that's totally valid as well. But
Mm-hmm.
you have something really special when things come together that quickly. Well, as soon as I saw the
Well, and
title, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I also have to think, like, huge support to people like you, sort of in the social media space of saying, like, oh, I'm really excited for this and I'm excited for
Yeah.
Thomas. Like, I'm either going to just share this
Mhm.
deck with other folks so that other people see it, or I'm going to actually support it and pledge
Yeah.
and back the deck. And like, probably half of the people who are backing the project right now are sort of within that, like, social media, like, influence space of
Yeah.
saying, like, oh no, this is like, I just want this to exist. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily know that I need it because I have 87,000 decks, but
Yeah.
I'm excited for it to be out there.
Yeah.
So I'm super grateful for that support.
No, it's amazing. Well, I mean, I was just about to say you had me at the color outside the lines. Like I've got so much inner child healing to do. Like I was always that kid who would check the front of my coloring book to make sure I was doing the right colors, and everything had to be like so strictly inside the lines, and like I was very like anal retentive about it actually. And it's only just recently that I'm actually allowing at 42 years old that I'm allowing myself to play and
Yeah.
explore different uses of color and sketching. And like, I was in my last art class was in grade 11 and I got a C on this painting that I did. And that's like, I've carried that with me as a badge of dishonor for so many years. And finally, I'm starting to allow myself to play and to sketch and to not have to have it be perfect or have it be even like art as I traditionally see it, but just something that means something to me. And it's so liberating to embrace that color out this outside of the lines mentality. And I love that that deck embraces your new edition, embraces that kind of playful, childlike energy. And there's so much healing to be had in that. And it's so fabulous that this deck encompasses so many different things. Like I love and appreciate that about the Lifeline Oracle. And it's so amazing that you've carried that multifaceted energy forward in this deck. Like that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool.
Yeah. I, you know, I think there are a lot of us who, in sort of in the like tarot sphere, who are doing amazing work. And so finding my niche for me was saying, like, okay, I like to transform divination techniques.
Mm,
And so I want my, I mean, so my tarot tableau book, right, was about
yeah.
mixing tarot and Lenormand. That's sort of where it all started.
Yeah.
Um, and Awaken the Court cards is like
Mhm.
magic and tarot,
Mhm.
right? So I wanted to continue that and make sure, like, this is the thing that I can do differently from other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So I want the decks to be able to help people do that if they want to. I mean, obviously you can just
Yeah.
use it as a regular deck of whatever,
Mhm.
but there is this openness to possibility and new interpretations and
Mhm.
exploring different modalities.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like that's the theme
Yeah.
behind all of the works. And so I think going forward, I'll make sure it's going to be important to me to maintain that. So
Mhm.
like even the smoke and mirrors edition that I was telling you
Oh,
about, right?
that's
Like
so exciting.
the the like background of that will be based, or it's going to be mostly dark, but there will be
Mhm.
hints of smoke, so you can do a sort of like aromancy with
Yeah.
it, right? As like scrying into the smoke, and they'll be different for
Yeah.
each of the cards. So that's that will
Uh,
have that extra layer as well whenever that comes out.
yeah.
This one I announced on the 1 year anniversary of the announcement of the first one. So
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. That's such a nice way to mark the launch as well. It's to
Yeah,
look at those anniversaries and stuff. That's really, really cool. I don't know about you. I mean, I own so many decks now. I
I
remember
have a bunch
thinking,
behind me.
oh my God, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's not because I use them all. I adore every single deck that's in my collection for different reasons, and I have so much respect for all of the creators within our community, and that's a big part of it too, because for me, tarot functions as art appreciation as well. But I think,
Hmm.
when I started this journey, I started with like 6 decks, and now it's, way past that. But I love that each deck has, not card, each deck has its own energy and its own function. And there's some that I reach for shadow work. There's others that I reach for inner child work. And it's so lovely that that's available now. I remember buying my first tarot deck, like, I don't know, 20 years ago, maybe not quite so long, at this little metaphysical shop in Calgary. And it was kind of this anomaly, right? And I walked in and there was like maybe a handful of decks. It was like the Mystic Fairy Tarot. And it was just, it's so lovely that decks are so much more accessible now and that there's all of these different options available and amazing creators now that tarot has become more accessible, more mainstream. I think that's the benefit of it. There's some downsides too, but it's so lovely to have all of this available. That was long-winded, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I know, but I think that is also important in recognizing that like not everyone needs this new version of the deck either,
Yeah.
right? So it is going to be limited based on the number of people who back the Kickstarter, and then
Mhm.
there won't be more than like 2 times that
Mhm.
total. So who knows what the limited edition is? Maybe it's 250, maybe it's
Yeah.
500. But like, if not everyone has to have like
Yeah.
it's not going to be for everyone,
Yeah.
and I think that that's that leaves room for people to budget for other decks if they don't want this one, right? Of feeling like, oh, I have to grab onto it.
Yeah.
But it's also a different approach to inner child work, and that was
Mhm.
important to me because I imagine probably we're similar in this of like uh, wanting to, or perhaps needing to approach inner child work still from that adult frame of
Yes.
reference. And
Yes.
it's not, for me, it's not about like letting go, but just like I was never really that kid that you sometimes see in inner child focused decks that are like adorable and rainbow and cute. And I love those decks, but I probably wouldn't use them for inner child work. I would just use them when I wanted a little like pop of joy because
Yes.
that doesn't represent my version of inner child. And so this offers a like an adult take on that. And the guidebook does have like deep exercises. They're only, I mean, it's only 3 because the
Mhm.
guidebook is limited and when you can fit
Yeah.
in it. But they go a little bit deep into general sort of like past life and inner child, figuring out, well, what is it that you're really trying to be tapping into right now, and then an exercise for the wounded child sort
Mhm.
of sub archetype, and then the magical child
Oh,
sub archetype, so you can like heal and empower.
oh, I love
And
that.
I'm really excited about that because I think that they're
Yeah.
really powerful exercises, and so
Love
it's
that.
not just like, oh, here's this thing, but actually, what do I do with it, or what I do with any deck to
Yeah.
do this kind of work.
Oh, absolutely. I can so relate to that because I love cutesy decks. Like I'm using the Sparkly Lenormand and it
Yeah, it's
can
so
put such,
cute.
it's so cute. It's so sweet. And
Yeah.
I just love the energy of it. And I always seem to, I'm kind of rotating through Lenormand decks, but I seem to hit these really like sweet, joyful prompts for that particular deck. And it nourishes me so much, but I
Hmm.
don't see myself in it. When I think of my childhood, like I feel like I was an adult long before I was an adult, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So being
Yeah.
able to find something that allows me to engage in inner child work, not from that cutesy child perspective. Like you, I have the utmost respect for those decks and I love working with them, but that's a separate thing for me. It's not for my own personal work. So I love that
Hmm.
you've created something with this deck that creates an adult framework to access your inner child. Like I feel like if I were
Yeah.
to access that, which I'm working on right now, I need to go about it in a different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I wanted it to pull, to have that like hint of joy and that hint
Mhm.
of like childish Crayola marker, right?
Yeah.
That 90% of us probably had or had access to.
Yeah.
Not everyone, certainly, but most of us, without necessarily feeling like, okay, I now have to enter this like childish frame
Mhm.
of mind, which You know, like there's a super cute deck that I would not actually consider childish, but the Precious Possum
Oh my
Lenormand
God, yes, I
by
have that one. I love
Logan.
it.
Like
So
I've
lovely.
done such great shadow work with that
Hmm.
deck, and so like I don't want people to think that cutesy is not, or I think that cutesy is not effective,
Yeah.
because it totally is.
Oh,
It's just that's not
100%.
what I wanted for
Yeah.
like my to be my offering into inner child work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said about that as shadow work, because sometimes I do gravitate towards sweeter, lighter decks when I'm dealing with hard things because it gives me,
Hmm.
like, the Way of the Panda is an excellent example of that. Precious Possum, there's these
Yeah.
decks that feel like a warm hug. And oftentimes when I'm dealing with things that are incredibly challenging, I need that space, right? Like
Hmm.
yeah, it's really useful in that capacity. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
So these are a little smaller than standard bridge size. So is the new edition more
The
of a,
new one is standard tarot size.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, so um, I enjoy this one. This is
oh,
right,
yeah,
and
okay.
the treatment of the numerals is different. So instead of that sort of like playing card
Hmm.
aesthetic, right, it's more like a traditional tarot card,
Nice.
um, where there's just the number
Yeah,
um, at the top. Because I mean, you can't really play cards with standard tarot
yeah,
card
yeah,
size things. Like, it's just, yeah, you can play a game of like three things or
yeah,
three cards at a time.
yeah.
So yeah, it has a different feel
Hmm.
overall to sort of go with that. It's not linen finish. It does still shuffle beautifully, but it is a
Hmm.
little bit glossy. It's smooth.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, sometimes that gloss
just
smooth can help with the shuffling too, because it helps the
yeah,
cards move. Like I love a rose petal finish, but often it can be hard when it comes to shuffling because it's stick, right? Like
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's great for an oracle deck where you want like one card. That's it. You don't need to do a whole spread because you could be there all day.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. That's really cool.
but I
And
do.
I
Yeah.
also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I do also love a rose petal. Like
Yes.
that's full lean into my Taurus sun. Like
Hmm.
I will just enjoy touching that and like lingering in that like luxurious space of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, that you can't do a big spread with that, or I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite finishes as well. But again, like different approaches with different decks can be really helpful in terms of like fluidity of shuffling and different ways of using them. It's so interesting when you start looking at all those little details like linen finish versus matte finish versus, weight of the cards and all of that. Like there's so much that goes into planning decks and, figuring out how you're going to negotiate all of those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also wanted I have taken your workshop that is about using the Lifeline Oracle. And I love that
Mhm.
you offer that. And it's a three-in-one system. So it's really cool because I was brand new to using like a playing card deck as a form of divination. And I had ordered the Vaxa deck by
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Leah Pantea. I hope I pronounced that properly. It just arrived yesterday, actually. I'm really excited.
Oh, is it amazing?
It's so fabulous, even more so in person. Like I
It's
love
so beautiful.
plants and just the artwork is absolutely stunning. My eldest is an artist, 100%. She's totally diving into that. She's 14 now and she spends all of her time drawing and sketching. And I think she wants to go into animation, but I had an extra sticker that came with it. I actually have it here. There was two. And I gave it to her because I thought it would
Uh,
be hugely inspiring. But yeah, and I'm so excited that I did that workshop with you because now I'll be able to work with that deck as a divination tool because I've played tons of cards over the course of my life, crib and gin rummy and like all the things, but I never thought of it as a tool for divination. So, like, what was your inspiration for creating that course and setting everything up, and how did you kind of pull it all together?
there were sort of two inspirations. One
Mhm.
was recognizing that it's sort of weird to have a playing card focused Lenormand deck. And um, so for those who are unfamiliar with the Oracle, it combines the Lenormand, which is 36 cards that are each associated with a playing card.
Mhm.
But usually it's just like a little inset, like at the top of the card, or it's totally not referenced.
Mhm.
And those cards have their own numbering system, 1 through 36. That for some people is quite important. My Oracle does not have that numbering system on it. So when
Mhm.
people complain, I'm like, well, just write it. There's plenty of
Yeah.
white space.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you can
Yeah.
just add it if you need it. Um,
Tons.
I'm sorry that I like didn't add that in addition. But I wanted to really focus on the, oh yeah, okay, you got it.
Yeah.
Right, like the playing card-ish nature.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so the six through ace,
Mm-hmm.
or six through king plus ace,
Mm-hmm.
those are associated with Lenormand cards. The two through fives are not.
Mm-hmm.
And originally I had planned to have a Lifeline Lenormand
Mm-hmm.
and a Lifeline Oracle.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was actually pricing the
Mm-hmm.
Lifeline Lenormand, once I wanted to add multiple significators, it was just as expensive to have like a 54 card deck as a 38 card deck. So
Yeah.
I thought like, okay, well, let me just give people a whole extra system for
Mm-hmm.
no extra cost
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to cost me the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so I expanded that Lenormand set to add the 16 missing cards, the 2
Mm-hmm.
through 5, and then the jokers,
Mm-hmm.
because you can do tableau with playing cards, just like you can
Mm-hmm.
do tableau with Kipper cards and Lenormand cards and all of the rest. So I thought, like, okay, let's just do one big system. Yeah,
I love
the
them.
upright and the reverse
Right. Yeah.
jokers. Those were fun.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, yeah, and so I realized, like, okay, people who do Lenormand
Mm-hmm.
probably don't think much about the playing card associations or how the playing cards can add another layer of
Mm-hmm.
interpretation. And in fact, the two systems traditionally are not like in great alignment. Like the
Mm-hmm.
spades are very bad traditionally in
Yeah.
playing cards, and the spades are kind of good in Lenormand. Like
Yeah.
instead, the clubs are bad
Mm-hmm.
um, in sort of like their most extreme, uh, like black and white meanings.
Yeah.
So I thought, like, okay, let's add another interpretation, and then the oracle cards. Um, it would be easy to sort of miss that they have their entirely different value because
Mm-hmm.
they're based off of the Lenormand meanings, but you use them totally differently.
Yeah.
So you can use those extra cards, the 2 through 5, as like new Lenormand cards
Mm-hmm.
that have non-traditional symbols, but similar symbols, or as you can use all of the cards as oracle cards for like that single card pull
Mm-hmm.
message and reflection, or as part of if you do oracle spreads,
Yeah.
um, looking for that sort of like abstract higher perspective reading. And I just thought, like, these are three very different systems. It would be easy to if you're comfortable with one, just like ignore the other two without realizing, like, oh, actually I can sort of learn as I go
Yeah.
with these different systems. So
Yeah.
there's again that option without the requirement of using all of the different pieces. And so I thought, let me give it a little bit of framing in case people don't bother reading the guidebook, or they just want like more hands-on experience, because
Yeah.
playing cards especially are much more open to interpretation than I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people understand them to be, because we have this idea that, like, oh, you have to read it this very like fortune tellery way and it has these traditional meanings. It's like, okay, well, yeah, that was common in one country. That's
Yeah.
not what they meant in the neighboring country. Like,
Yeah.
it's not what it meant for this ethnic population. Like, you can read them intuitively. And so I wanted to like also sort of give that lesson to people and that
Yeah.
encouragement, in case they felt like, oh, I'm never going to read the playing card versions because I don't want to memorize all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Great, you don't have to.
Yeah.
That's not your tradition, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
that's why.
and that's amazing. And I love that it's kind of an entry point too. Like if you come at it as a playing deck, like playing card deck, that's great. And you can use it in that capacity. But as you're looking at the images, maybe you're curious to see, okay, what's this Lenormand thing? Or, how can I use this as an oracle? And I feel like it's really great because however you're approaching it, there's space to evolve into something else. I'm a lifelong learner. I can't get enough new information. I love diving into new things. So that just makes me so happy that there's so much potential, like there's so much room for exploration in both of these decks. And also in all of your materials, because you offer a lot of courses. Like you've got your Read Tarot Like a Nerd course. I was so excited about the Reading the River of Time when I looked at it on your website too, because there's a lot of ancestral work and inner child work, from what I understand.
Yep.
Yeah, and then there's also the Awaken the Court cards, which is really great because I think a lot of people find the court cards really challenging. Like of most new readers that I've spoken to, that's the biggest hurdle, right? Because I think there's like traditional interpretations of court cards, and then there's also kind of new ways of looking at it. Do you look at it as someone outside, or do you look at it as an aspect of yourself? I tend to do the latter now. I started in the former. But it's yeah, so I'd love to find out a bit more about your different classes too, and
Sure.
how you came up with them, what your inspiration was, and what the general focus is.
Yeah. So read Tarot Like a Nerd. There's currently a session going on. There will be another one starting April 2nd, which is
Okay.
going to be on Saturdays.
Yeah.
So people who are in Europe
Yeah.
or who don't have, weeknights free,
Yeah.
they can at least hopefully
Hmm.
sign up for that a more like happy time.
Yeah.
It'll be sort of midday in the US on Saturdays. That came about because I have learned so much about reading tarot in the last few years
Hmm.
that in the first 20 years of reading tarot, I had no idea about. And so I wanted to give people that awareness. Like, we cover so much material, there's no way that a, a normal person or even
Yeah.
like a highly like gifted person is probably going to absorb it all
Yeah.
in the class setting, but it introduces you to, hey, like in 5 minutes, we will briefly describe like the pros and cons of reading the minor arcana
Hmm.
suit associations with geographical regions. Like, that's not something I think is like ethically appropriate to do, but here's how, like, it
Yeah.
exists. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Here's some things to consider. Like,
Hmm.
go back home and explore that if that's interesting to you.
Yeah.
But like, now let's focus on this thing. And so there's a lot of different techniques that are introduced. Like, you can get a taste of the astrological associations.
Hmm.
But for the most part, I focus on sort of 6 strategies,
Hmm.
3 that are more image based and 3 that are more structural, that don't require
Okay.
any image. Like, it could just be
Hmm.
like, words on a card,
Hmm.
to help like find your own best way of reading the cards and communicating with your intuition in a way that is natural and is already occurring,
Hmm.
while also allowing you to explore as time and need allow. So I'm a big fan of learning these new modalities, of expanding your divinatory vocabulary,
Yep.
so that you can communicate more precisely with your
Hmm.
intuition. Because that's what I think the big thing is. Like, right, we all
Hmm.
have connection to our intuition. It's
Hmm.
just the language may not be precise because we haven't honed we haven't honed that
Yeah.
skill, and so we just get that like gut reaction of fear, and it's like,
Hmm.
okay, well, let's break down what's in that fear, because
Hmm.
like the actual thing that we think we're feeling may just be a very small part of that.
Yeah.
And so we go through those 6 steps, and then focus on sort of like the different categories of cards,
Hmm.
different ways of interpreting. And then there's a bunch of homework for people to do to try to suss out, like, okay, well, what works best for me? What am I trying to do? What do I want to do?
Hmm.
And then we get into some of the more complexities, like, um, reading spreads, reading cards in conversation and
Hmm.
combination, and then like special topics like reversals, or all of the different ways that you could be reading court cards if
Hmm.
you're so inclined.
Yeah.
um, like, does it matter how I shuffle? Does it
Yeah.
like, how do I treat jumpers?
Yeah.
Right. And sort of like all of those things.
Hmm.
Most of them get just like a little bit of cursory explanation, because again, in a class, like, you're not going to remember all that stuff anyway. But knowing that it exists, you can now think about it on
Yeah.
your own time.
Yeah.
And so that was the big impetus behind Read Tarot Like a Nerd.
Wow.
And if you're interested in the class, those who are watching, you can just go to readtarotlikeanerd.com and it will redirect to my site. And there is that April version coming up, but there's also a self-paced version.
Oh, no.
So if you take the live class, you also get the self-paced access, to sort of catch up on anything that you missed, or review something that you're like, I have this note, it's one word, I don't remember what it's about. You can go back and see that. So lots of good stuff. It was fun to do that and just share a lot of the knowledge that I've gained. Say, like, you don't need to wait 25 years to find all of this stuff out. See it now, play with it, see what sticks, and then, practice that and see if you like it.
Yeah.
And then Awaken the Core Cards is like a totally different thought behind it. And that came out of people wanting a court card class, and me feeling like people don't need court card meanings. They
Hmm.
have those. What they need is feeling like, or remembering, or help remembering that court cards are people like us. It's like, how do you actually like find the person within the court card?
Hmm.
And so each of the sessions focuses on a different way of reading the court cards, and practice doing that. And then there are some exercises that you can do that are very self-reflective to figure
Mhm.
out like, okay, what's the kind of energy within this card and how can I
Mhm.
bring it out in the everyday? Because
Mhm.
the personas of the court exist within us
Yes.
and we can actually use them quite productively if we tap
Yeah.
into them. So there is now a book that goes along with it,
Mhm.
also Awaken the Court cards. And so that has more like quasi magical, but also self reflective exercises
Mhm.
that really stemmed out of like one exercise that was just a page long that I had for the class. And I
Yeah.
was like, let me build this out a little bit more. Let me give them some more information. I was like, okay, well now this is a book, so that's available
Yeah.
for people who don't necessarily need a whole class, but want those kinds of exercises to say like, how can I get in tune with this energy? Like, how can I bring it out in my own self?
Yeah.
Um, and how can I just explore it in fun new ways that like bring it to life? Because I think that's what's missing for a lot of people with court cards is they don't feel relevant. They don't feel like them. They don't feel like the people that they know when they really should, because that's what they
Yeah.
represent.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more I work with the court cards, the more I'm able to see myself in them. There's so many different archetypes and energies that go from the pages
Mm-hmm.
all the way to the kings in each of the suits, and they're all so unique and different. But after having worked with them extensively, I can see myself as much in the Page of Pentacles as I can in the Queen of Swords, but it's taken a long time and a lot of work and reframing to get to that point. So I think it's so fabulous that you have that course and that book put together because that's such a great resource for taking your first steps in that journey, right? Or not first
Yeah.
steps, like further along, like it's really
Yeah. Well,
accessible
and
to everyone.
I love that you talked about the Page of Pentacles and the Queen of Swords. Like, I think so many of us think like, oh, I have one court card significator, and like, I am the King of Swords because I'm
Mhm.
analytical and I'm over the age
Mhm.
of 35 and I'm a
Mhm.
man, right? So like that must be me. It's like, well, that's 1/16 of you. You have the other 15 in you too. You just
Yeah,
maybe are not as in touch with them.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
so, yeah, I love that you've discovered that for yourself. But that is also part of the purpose of that book and
Yeah,
that class.
yeah, that's amazing. I love it. And as far as books go, you also have the Tarot Tableau book. I have a
Mm-hmm.
copy of that, and it's wonderful. So that's kind of bridging tarot and Lenormand as well, right? So what
Mm-hmm.
was your process of creating that and your inspiration, and how did that all come together?
So most of everything that I'm realizing now that I do is because I'm like, oh, let me do this one thing.
Yeah.
And then let me give more context for this thing because
Mhm.
people can't see inside my brain. And there are a lot of like hidden pieces. So
Yeah.
that started as a tarot spread that I was going to just post on my blog using the major arcana and the Lenormand house system,
Mhm.
which takes like the card as it is and says like, all right, if this is the first card that you're placing down, that's associated with the house of the first card. In
Mhm.
Lenormand, that would be the house of the rider. In Tarot Tableau, that would be the house of the fool. And this is, my book is not the first time that this idea has ever come across.
Mhm.
People have definitely introduced Tarot Tableau before.
Yeah.
Um, but what I was really excited to do was give people guided steps to actually like moving beyond just this house-based system to say like, how can I actually use this with all of the tools in the Lenormand and cartomancy like tradition, right? To
Yeah.
say, if we have a card on one side of the tableau, it's mirroring a card on the exact opposite side of the tableau, and those have a message to share with each other. Or if it's in this position versus this position,
Mhm.
they can mean very different things. And so let's see how we can interpret that. And so within what started as just like a House of the Fool to the House of the World layout system, I
Mhm.
kept adding in ideas, and then suddenly again, it was like a book with a bunch of appendixes. So uh, that was the inspiration there. And I have found that it's the best general spread for
Mhm.
me if there's a querent who doesn't know why they're coming to see you, or they aren't willing to say why
Yeah.
they're coming to see you,
Yeah.
because it tells you like this is where you need to focus,
Yeah.
right? And so you can look for where the fool is. You can look at
Mhm.
what's in the house of the fool and the house of the world, and like you have a very good reason what they need to be focused on, whether or not they know that that's what they need to be focused on.
Yeah.
And that like for people who struggle with that sort of general reading or say like,
Yeah.
well, I guess I should do a Celtic cross or like just three cards, this gives you that opening, and then you can actually dive in to say like, okay, well, since you're bringing up this thing, let's look at the house of the emperor, or let's see where the star is, or where the, oh, you're scared about something coming up, where is the tower landing? And so you don't have to do a bunch of different spreads. You can just do the one and
Yeah.
like read 100 different questions in that one spread, which I
Yeah.
think is really powerful. It can be very
Mhm.
overwhelming if you're unfamiliar or new to it. But it, what's nice about it is that you also, you don't have to do all of the tricks that it allows you to do. You can just, scrape the surface and get a lot out of it, and then say like, that's enough. I'm done. I don't need to dive down this wormhole. And something like the opening of the key, for example, if you know that, like these very ritualistic readings can be more challenging to sort of stop midway and
Yeah.
say like, oh, I'm not going to go to the end because there's like the good stuff is at the end with the
Yeah.
tarot tableau. I was excited to introduce a method where like the good stuff's wherever you want to find
Yeah.
it. And so you can start at the beginning and then you can just get more details as you
Yeah.
go.
Well, and I love that it's accessible because you can go as far as you want, or,
Yeah.
as far as you don't want, like
Yeah.
it's open. And like, I find so often what I love about tarot is that oftentimes there's things that I'm not aware of, or maybe I'm aware of, but I don't really want to look at. But when I see it laid out in front of me, it allows me to work through some of that stuff that either I've been resisting or I wasn't as aware of in a way that's kind of tangible. Like if it's floating around my head, it's one thing. But if I can see it laid out in front of me and look at how different things work together, that can be really helpful and really proactive. And I love that this approach allows you to take that proactive step and really start working through things in a way that is tangible. Do you know what I mean? Like it really gives you those tools to be able to do that work, which is really, really great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought one of the fun things that it could also sort of accidentally do was
Hmm.
help people remove a lot of the depth that they feel is necessary out of the tarot cards, because it's based on a key sort of like gut instinct of like a word or a phrase coming out of that major arcana. And you don't, I mean, I have spent like an hour reading one card, but
Yep.
like you don't need to do that in every reading. And
Yep.
so this is a reading where you cannot do that.
Yep.
So it's good to practice those different, going super deep and saying like,
Yep.
no, this card means one word. That's all it's doing here.
Yeah.
It's not opening up a portal into infinity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's nice to have both.
Yeah. And that's so great because I can so relate to that. There's times when I like to look at astrological correspondences and tarot. That's something I've been focusing on a lot. And you can go down a wormhole with that. Like there's so much rabbit hole of, research in this book and that book and pulling all the ideas together. And sometimes it's refreshing to just focus on the one word and how it maybe relates to something else and what kind of relevance that has to your life at this point in time. Like that's really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really cool.
Yeah, and if you haven't done the astrological version of the tarot tableau, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna get
That
into
is
that.
often how I use it the most.
Yeah.
But that is sort of like one of the like bonus options in the appendix.
Mhm. Yeah, I bought the book ages ago. It was when I was first I've been diving deeper into tarot for about the last 5 years, but when I first set up my account and everything and I found yours and I purchased the book, I wasn't at the point that I'm at now, and I feel like I would get so much more out of it now that I've done more of a deep dive into meanings and I don't have to grab the guidebook whenever I pull something.
Mm-hmm.
I know what the general meanings are, so I feel like yeah, it's really helpful when you're new to it, but then it's also helpful in different ways when you're further along in your investigative journey when it comes to tarot. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like how the journey is sort of like cycle back of like, oh,
Yes.
it starts simple, it gets complex. Okay, we can pare it back a little bit, make it more simple. Okay, now we can add something new.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh, that's amazing. So in terms of your Kickstarter, you just launched within the last week. So when does it go until?
Goes until March 5th.
Okay. Yeah,
That's
that's
the last day.
lots of time. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah, so almost three more weeks.
Yeah, that's so exciting. How do you find the
Yeah.
Kickstarter process? Because did you do Kickstarter for the Oracle? And
I didn't.
okay, yeah, I didn't think you
Yeah,
did.
I had intended to do it for the Oracle, and then we decided to move. I was like,
Okay.
okay, well, I don't want to deal with like
Yeah.
customs, import, like
Hmm.
changing my business address, the tax
Yeah.
implications of that. Like
Yeah.
I need to have this done before I move,
Hmm.
so I don't have to deal with some sort of like tax burden nightmare
Yes.
after I move, when the Kickstarter funds would actually come through.
Yeah.
And I sort of wish that I hadn't done that
Hmm.
and had just waited, because the Kickstarter process is really fun. The bad thing about
Hmm.
Kickstarter is that you're going to lose like 10%
Yeah.
between Stripe and Kickstarter.
Yeah.
You'll lose about 10% on the funding, but it's for like the color version of the deck. I didn't really know whether anyone would want it. Like some people had asked me for it, but I thought like, okay, I'm not going to make a deck for 5 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredibly expensive. Like
Yes.
it's kind of a hassle to go through all of that. Like I'll make a sample deck for myself,
Hmm.
but if it's just for me and a couple of people who I was able to send it to, like fine.
Yeah.
And so it does allow you to sort of like send a trial balloon, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, and I do also like for me, I said this is just going to be limited.
Hmm.
I have plenty of original Lifeline Tarot decks like in boxes in the
Hmm.
closet. Like I don't need a bunch more. Like I don't need hundreds and hundreds of excess decks to
Hmm.
sell. So I'd rather just like make this a limited thing. It reduces some stress for me later. I don't make the sort of profit that you would make
Hmm.
from selling, 1,000 excess decks, but like it's just this sort of like sweet magical moment
Yeah.
that we get to share together. And
Yeah.
if I run out of extra decks within a year, like great, but okay, it's over, it happened.
Yeah.
People can get excited for smoke and mirrors, right?
Yeah.
Like that'll be
Yeah.
the next version.
Exactly.
So
And it's
um
supposed to have
yeah,
limited
it's been
runs like
fun.
that because it's its own moment. You know what I mean? It's its own thing and it's coming out and that's all there is to it. And then it's on to something else. I think there's a lot of magic in that and capturing that moment in time and where you were at
Yeah,
and what you were thinking when you created it. And it also, I would imagine, would help you with budgeting too, because you know exactly how many people are backing it. So you can order that amount of decks and do however many extra you want. But it's a lot easier to navigate that financially because you know what you're working with, right? So that makes a lot
right.
of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and for it, like currently it comes, or it will come in a tuck box.
Hmm.
Um, but like if we hit this mega stretch goal that I have in
Yeah.
mind, then everyone will get like a magnetic book box version of it, right?
Yeah.
And the current stretch goal is to expand the booklet, to make it
Mhm.
longer, to make it color. If
Yeah.
we don't hit that stretch goal, like fine, it's not going to be a worse product, but like people aren't getting, pay or charged at the outset for that cost because
Yeah.
I've assumed I'm going to have 500 decks.
Yep.
Um, and so it just makes it more manageable for everyone. I mean, it's still not like a cheap deck. It's not as cheap as the
No.
originals,
Yeah.
but it's also not like a $60 deck,
Yeah.
which
Mhm.
it probably would be if I had gone from the outset with like a magnetic book box,
Yeah.
and like this long, colorful guidebook. So it
Yeah.
makes it, I don't know, just, the people who want it, they get it.
Yeah.
And if it can be a little bit fancier because more people want it, great. And if it's
Yeah.
not, I'm like, okay, so no one's being like overcharged for a simple thing.
Well, that's part of the fun of Kickstarter too, is the stretch goals and like monitoring and seeing, okay, are we gonna hit this? And you get this
Yeah,
extra special bonus, and it's just kind of it's a fun part of the process as someone who backs. And I would also imagine that having it on Kickstarter also brings in its own flow of traffic. I mean, I don't know how much that would be, but there are people that specifically look for decks on Kickstarter who might not have had access to your account or be familiar
right.
with your work outside of that. So I don't know if it's a huge percentage, but it would be something I would imagine.
Yeah, I would say it's a little. It's
Yeah,
not, at least so far, it has not been a ton. Like most of the
yeah,
backers are people who either directly knew me or knew an account who shared on
yeah,
Instagram. Um, and I'm not upset about that. Like,
yeah, I know for sure,
that's
for
great.
sure.
I truly appreciate any of the support, and that there are folks who sort of like come back
Mhm.
and want to show up in that way. There have been some who I'm like, I don't know who this person is.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be someone who I know on Instagram or who found someone like through, like a chat like this, or flip
yeah,
through that someone who was able to get a sample deck got. Like that's, I don't necessarily know where they come from. I assume
mhm,
some are directly from a recommendation on Kickstarter, and that's great because then I get exposed to them, they get exposed to me, and
yeah,
maybe there's something that we can learn together
mhm.
through that.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. Yeah, it's so exciting. Well, I'm going to share this to my Instagram IGTV, I guess it is now, and stories, but also I'm planning to post it to my YouTube channel as well. So I find there's different pockets of this community in different areas, right? Like there's Instagram, and there's Vero, and there's also YouTube has its own kind of niche and following and stuff. So it's interesting kind of branching out into different areas and seeing who you can meet and learn from in those spaces. Like,
Yeah.
it's really, really cool.
Are you, I'm not really on YouTube at all. Like I've put my like screenshot games on YouTube, and I think,
Yeah,
and my tarot tableau, because I actually have free tutorials on the
nice.
system
That's great.
on YouTube,
Hmm.
but otherwise I'm not really there, so I don't see as much of that. Like I focus solely on Instagram, and it is
Yeah,
limiting,
yeah.
right? Because not everyone is on Instagram or wants to be. Like
Mhm.
I loathe Facebook, so
Me too.
even though I'm on,
I can't
even
handle
though
it.
I'm on
I know that
Instagram,
it's owned by the same company, so really it should be the same
yeah,
thing. But I started a Facebook for this a little while ago, and then I just completely, I didn't like delete it, but I like deactivated it because I just like I was hardly ever on there, and I just
yeah,
don't. It just doesn't have a good vibe for me. Whereas Instagram, I love, like it's an amazing community and everything else. I started up a YouTube channel a little while ago, and I've been sharing my deck creator chats, and I did Anthony's 31 Days of Tarot on there, so I was kind of posting more regularly, and I've put all my deck flip throughs and stuff and like mini reviews on
oh,
there as
fun,
well. So I've learned a lot from YouTube. Like I started following Kellyanne Maddox years ago, and I learned a lot about tarot through her kind of free classes and things that she offered. So that was really cool. So, but I feel like I'm so new to that platform in terms of like I know there's some people that have like a huge following on YouTube and that's kind of their niche and their thing, but
hmm
I'm a relative newbie when it comes to that for sure.
yeah,
So is
yeah.
your
It can be exhausting trying to do all the things.
Yes, and that's the thing too. It's like where do you focus your energy and what spaces do you want to occupy more or less or because you can't do it all, right? It's like
Yeah,
the reforming type A in me is like, oh yeah, all the things, and I'm like, no, simmer down. Like it doesn't have to be all of it, right? So are you on YouTube under Hermit's Mirror?
yes,
Oh,
yep,
perfect. Yeah, that's
yep,
great.
yeah. So I recently started on TikTok as well,
Oh,
which,
fun.
for like obviously, I joined sort of at the same time that everyone did with the Tiger King craze,
Yeah.
and that period of the pandemic where it's like,
Yes.
what is life? Let's
Like
watch
the Sour
TikTok for hours
phase,
on end.
there's like the Tiger King phase, there was like the toilet
Yeah,
phase, there's like all these different like phases of it.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. So I joined then, but I was just like lurking, and then
yeah,
I recently started posting to it, and it's fun because it's like so low stress, and like
yeah,
I don't care if anyone
yeah,
likes
yeah,
anything because I don't
yeah,
like I have like 50 followers, so it
yeah,
doesn't like hurt me if I get like a like on something. So it's like
yeah,
great, someone actually saw it. That's
yeah,
crazy odds.
yeah.
So but it you can do like stupid little things that
Hmm.
I would never post to Instagram because that's not really the community that I'm
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
create or like
yeah,
what I'm trying to offer, but like that part of me still exists,
yeah,
and so it needs an out.
yep.
So it gets that through that.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
yeah, like I tried Twitter for like a week, and I was like, this is
Yeah.
exhausting.
I haven't been able to do the Twitter thing. I think that Donald Trump ruined that completely for me. I didn't have an account
Yeah,
on Twitter, and I just like I can't bring myself to do it. Um, TikTok I've kind of contemplated, like, but I don't know. I feel like I can't take on like one more thing. Like I see so many TikTok
yeah,
videos that are shared to Instagram and I follow a lot of stuff that way, but I haven't taken the step to actually set it up. Maybe I will eventually. I don't know, because it would be like a fun medium. But yeah, that's kind of like on the back burner of possibility at this point. So it's kind of
I
fun
will
to
say,
explore.
yeah, as you have time or
Mhm.
inclination to play with it, it may do some sort of like perfectionist healing because you're like,
Oh,
I cannot possibly like
yeah.
struggle to get this exact frame location. Like they make the user interface not perfectionist friendly,
Yes.
um, in a way that's actually different from Reels. So like
Yeah.
as the frame is changing in Reels, it will like snap to that frame.
Okay.
TikTok, it does not snap to that
Yeah.
frame.
Yeah.
So like you're like fighting. It's this like tiny thing. I have these large thumbs.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was like, I just spent an hour trying to get this thing within like a millisecond that
Yeah.
no one is even going to see. Like,
Yeah.
what am I doing? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it was very healing to be
Yeah.
able
It
to say,
sounds
like,
really therapeutic.
I don't really give a shit. Like,
Yeah.
let me just
Screw
post
this.
this.
Like this isn't working. I'm just
Someone's
gonna
going
do
to
it
like,
anyway, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
right.
that's
Like,
awesome.
someone's going to laugh over this transition anyway, so like,
Yeah.
why do I really care? Or no one's going
Yeah.
to see it. And either way, like,
Yeah.
I don't need to spend an hour worrying about this thing in
Yeah.
a way that's different from Instagram, because
Yeah.
I would sort of like futz over, and it's different now, but for a long time, I would like be very energy intensive into my
Mhm.
posts.
Yeah.
Now it's different. There's different reach. And so I'm like, I sort of don't care. Like, no, 5% of my followers will actually see this.
Oh no, yeah, there's
So
been such a
I'm
huge
not,
shift with that. And
yeah,
in a way, it's really, well, in a large way, it's really frustrating. But in another way, it's kind of liberating because I don't feel like there's so much pressure because it's like, well, only a certain amount of people are going to see this anyway, so I might as well just do my thing and
yeah,
whatever. It's,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. No, I
Yeah.
actually haven't even done a reel yet. Like I've been kind of debating about that too. And I feel like maybe when I get a handle on reels, then I'll explore TikTok a little bit more because it feels like it's a similar medium. But
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wish you many liberatory experiences.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna have to explore it. Like even if I don't create anything, it's just kind of a fun space to be on. And it's so funny with the algorithm because I have a friend who's a vet and another my besties in Newfoundland as well, and the three of us used to be in a book club. And I explored a couple of cat videos on Instagram, just because we were sharing funny things back and forth. And now all I see is cat videos. It's so funny, right? It's interesting when you see the algorithm working to like give you more of the same. And it's just kind
Hmm.
of, yeah, it was one video.
Yeah.
Yeah, but super awesome
Yeah.
too. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
It is.
so much for chatting with me. This is incredible, and I'm so excited about your Kickstarter and everything you've told me about this amazing deck. And yeah, so where can everyone find you? Instagram, it's at Hermit's Mirror. You have YouTube as
Yep.
well. You also have your website.
Yeah. So everything is just Hermit's Mirror,
Yeah,
Hermit S Mirror.
yeah,
So hermitsmirror.com.
yeah.
Um, the Lifeline Tarot you can also find sort of redirect from lifelinetarot.com, readtarotlikenerd.com, sort of redirects to that page of my website.
Nice.
But Hermit's Mirror sort of like is the thing on
Yeah,
any platform,
that's great.
usually. I mean,
Yeah.
unless there's like a Snapchat Hermit's Mirror, that's not me. I'm not on Snapchat. But otherwise, they're all me.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I love the consistency of it. I started with Tarot Adventures with Jules just kind of off the top of my head, and now that's everything. And I don't know, it's nice to have that consistency,
Here,
like it was something that wasn't claimed yet. And so, I'm working on a website right now, and that's going to be Tarot Adventures with Jules. It's nice when you can have that consistency where people know exactly where to find you. It's really, really great.
yeah.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So,
It's funny how that like sticks too.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know if you. Mine was just like I have to pick something, so I'll just
yeah,
pick this. And it's like,
yeah.
well, this is now literally my legal business entity.
Nope.
So good job.
Yeah, let's go with it. That's so awesome. Yeah, so Kickstarter is on until March 5th, you said?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
that's great. Yeah. Oh, that's so exciting. And you'll have a few extra decks after that potentially for your site or
In the yes, yeah. I'll have at least 100 that I'll sell
nice.
sort of retail.
Oh, yeah.
But then I don't know if there will be more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's good to
So
know because if someone can't swing Kickstarter right now or but is still interested in the deck, then there's some potential for that afterwards too. That's really amazing.
yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for coming and chatting with me.
Yeah. Thank you, Jules.
A pleasure. I really enjoyed finding out more about your process and these amazing decks and just like, yeah, it's amazing. So thank you very much. And for
Thank you.
anyone who hasn't had a chance to watch the entire video, I'll be posting this to IGTV and also to YouTube so you can catch it there. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you have a lovely rest of the weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Cheers.
See you all.
Bye.